There are few people I know who have spent more time in comedy than Neal Brennan. Like few human beings. And when I say comedy, I mean every level of comedy. TV.
Administration.
Yeah, no, really.
Paperwork.
No, really.
Scheduling.
You are that guy. Like, club comedy, Neal Brennan has been in the trenches of the trenches. So I was going to ask you about this, but like, I feel like there is no comedian who does not have something wrong with them. No good comedian,
I learned
actually.
that from The Daily Show. I was like, all these people are insane. But I was like, these are not normal people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, like there's and it doesn't matter what it is. It might be your family. It might be the country you lived in. It might be just a neurodivergent thing that you have in your own head and you grew up in a fine
What's
world,
funny
whatever.
is I do a podcast called Blocks where I have people on and we talk about their issues.
Yeah.
And I know that they're not the real issues. Do you know what I mean? Like these are the issues that you're willing. These are the showcase issues.
Oh man!
And I'm like, the real issue.
But do you think they know?
A couple days a year, they know. They know that a couple days a year they can actually be like, ugh.
But they don't want to look at it.
This is What Now with Trevor Noah. If you don't know Neal Brennan, you probably don't know comedy, right? Neal Brennan is in many ways like the Forrest Gump of comedy. He has been everywhere. He knows everyone. No comedian who is worth their salt in anything does not have a story about Neal Brennan. I don't care where they're from. I don't care what they're doing. I'm talking about comedians from other countries as well, not just in America. Like they know Neal Brennan, right? I know some of your story, but I don't want to miss it, especially for the audience. So Neal Brennan is born where?
Philadelphia, outside Philadelphia.
Okay, I had like Ireland in my head for some reason.
It feels like it.
It feels like
Brennan.
It
It's
really is
Brennan.
the
It's such an
yeah.
Irish name.
It really
Yeah.
is. I
I'm
had
an Irish citizen, but I got my.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I got my citizenship like recently.
Oh, look at
I don't
you!
know what to do with it, but
Congratulations!
I have it.
No, just do it. Just use it.
I'm gonna EU. I'm gonna move somewhere to EU.
Okay, so you're born in Philadelphia.
Born in Philadelphia.
The
young-
last of 10.
Last of 10.
How many boys? How many girls?
6 boys, 4 girls, and and then I don't know. It was just you the youngest of 10. It's pretty chaotic, and it's a lot of kids in a house. It's a bit like an orphanage, but no one comes.
Were your parents
No
like,
one comes to take
okay, I'm
anybody.
curious, like the age gap between 1 and 10 and where your parents are
10 kids in 16 years.
16 years. But I'm curious about by the time your parents got to you, were they like, oh, fuck it?
It was pretty.
Do they
New
just not care
Testament. It
anymore?
was just kind of like,
Yeah.
it's whatever's gonna happen. But still, I was like, I worked a lot. I caddied. But I was like drank, smoked, and my mom would just kind of not even.
Wait, how old are you when this is happening?
13.
Wow.
Damn.
Yeah. That's
13,
young.
14. I got underage drinking when I was 16. Cops.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
So you
I mean,
were
I
a
wasn't.
troublemaker, kind of.
Yeah, but I stopped once. I remember the end of high school being like, I don't really need to drink. Like I've never been that into it. It was just like I was just doing it. I wasn't much. I was similar in that like I was friends with a lot of friend groups and pretty funny and like.
What was the family funny? Because I've never known this part of your comedy. Like, who was the funny in your family, or where did the funny come from?
My dad liked comedy. I think a lot of what his jokes were kind of stolen from like Frank Sinatra and like where I'd go like, oh, I know that cadence. Where I'd listen to I'd watch a Frank Sinatra and I'd be like, oh, that's where he got it. He was one of 13. So, and it's a lot of boys in that family. There's probably 7 boys in this family. So it was like a lot of sort of sarcasm. And then this is a funny story. 1 year at Thanksgiving, I'm in high school. One of my brothers said, Kevin, you're not even the funniest one in the family. Neal is. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Wow.
Like kind of overly competitive for funniest, I guess.
Specifically for funniest.
Yeah.
I guess in this case, yeah.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah, but now having said that, my older brothers and sisters were all so great to me in that they all had jobs that were interesting. that I got access to. My brother Joe was a caddy on the PGA Tour. So I would go to like PGA Tour events and like knew Kevin was a comedian. So I got entree into that. In high school, knew David Tell, knew Louis, met Louis when I was in high school, Ray Romano, all these guys. Tommy worked at the Chicago Stadium and Wrigley Field. So I used to go to Cubs games, Bulls games. I saw a white girl mistake Michael Jordan for somebody else. That's how long ago this was. Imagine how long ago this was. A white girl said, "Hey, are you Orlando Woolridge?" And I remember Michael Jordan's face falling and being like, "No, I'm Michael Jordan." This is prehistoric time. So I got a lot of possibilities. I got to see a lot of possibilities and like a lot of life choices and life paths from the family.
Whenever I think of big families, I don't know. I'm torn. You know, my family, like brothers are split, right? So I have two younger brothers. One is 10 years younger. One is 20 years younger. So for all intents and purposes, it feels like we were all single kids in a way.
Yeah.
But then we all occupy an age position.
Yeah.
You know, so I do feel like the eldest because of age.
Yeah.
But
has your mom's parenting changed a lot?
So I would say she's changed, but not her so her ability to execute her parenting style has evolved with age. Like I was talking to my youngest brother about this the other day. It's like, I don't think my mom's vibe changed, but when I was young, she could chase me. When my brother was naughty, she couldn't chase him as much as she could chase me. So I think she then had to adapt. But over a long distance, she always got me.
Sure.
She always got me. But I always wondered, like in a big family, like, because I craved it most of my life. And then I would meet people in mega big families and they would say, oh, I felt forgotten. I felt like there wasn't enough love to go around. Like, did you feel like that?
I think just it's a resources issue. Now, having said that, the economist Thomas Sowell used to say there are no solutions. There's only trade-offs, which I think is just true about everything. So there's no one thing like that's better, because then only children, there's like downsides to only children apparently.
Yeah.
The ego, and they don't know how to share, or they don't know how to interact or whatever. But they're very loved, maybe too loved. I think you could persuade me either way. I think if a kid's loved, that's good. But I wasn't necessarily like, didn't get the most love from my dad necessarily, specifically. My mom like wanted to, but like had to cook or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and she did, but it's just, you know, she had her hands full. So I don't know. I don't know what the best, what do you're doing it.
I know.
So how do you?
Well, I'm curious before I answer this. Do you and your siblings get on? Are you close?
Remember that Thanksgiving story?
Yeah.
That spirit remains.
Oh, so
I mean, it's
so it's openly competitive.
My dad was competitive with us. So I think that there's like, that's kind of.
So
sounds like Succession.
I mean,
I was about to, like, your dad competing.
It's white trash Succession.
You said it.
No, exactly. It is. It's competitive. One of my brothers used to keep track of who made the most money.
That's dark.
Yeah. And then Chappelle show happened and he was like, this is stupid. So I don't, you know, I would say it's a mixed bag. I think some are close, some are not. But the good news about 10 kids, you don't have to be close with all of them.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's multiple families in one because most of the time I feel like your siblings sort of not have to be, but you have to be close to them because these are the only people who've shared your existence. But then when there's 10, there's a lot of people who've shared your existence. You can choose within the 10.
And there's also that generational thing.
Yeah.
Of my brother, Joe, 16 years older than me. So he said to me recently, he's like, I realized like we never really knew each other. I was like, yeah. How would we have? He moved out when I was 4 or something, or maybe even 3,
yeah.
So it becomes more like an uncle thing.
Also, the thing with siblings is just like, if you weren't siblings, oftentimes you wouldn't be friends. Like that's just like if you met them in a bar, what are the odds? But now you're forced to. become friends, which is
What do you, okay, so
New
tell me
strategy.
what your plan is
I'm
and if
reading.
you're executing it.
I'm reading this book called Siblings Without Rivalry.
Okay.
When I'm
look at
done
that.
when I'm done with the book, I'll let you know. I'm really afraid because I come from, I don't know, and I don't know if it's like African family dynamics. I don't want to be generalized here, but I always remember there were always like fights about land and fights about... That sounds so parochial.
I was about to say that sounds like
Yeah.
an insult that someone would say
I know,
Yeah.
it sounds like...
to
Yeah.
an African.
I'm just
They'd be
going to
like-
listen.
It sounds
guys.
like Trump.
Go on.
It sounds
be
like
like-
Trump. They're like, they're
Yeah.
eating cats and dogs.
Yeah.
They're fighting
Yeah.
over land.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. But like, I've just, conflict was kind of ambient in the extended family. Me and my sisters are figuring it out. We're at very different phases in our lives, but we're a good unit.
It's underneath that big tree from Black Panther, right?
Basically.
That's the one. It's just a
Jesus
feud.
Lord.
Am I seeing this feud right?
The vibranium. The fighting of
Yeah, yeah.
vibranium.
Yeah.
Vibranium.
Christiana, there are a few things you need to focus on with your siblings. You know, the weirdest thing for me with Black Panther is like sometimes when I do that, because it's like the accent that they're doing is a South African accent, but then not a South African accent. So even when I do it, I have to like
You have to
I have
adjust.
to undo.
You were in it and do a different accent, right?
Yeah. I had to like, because I wanted to match the general accent. So I didn't want to like come in there with like a weird,
yeah.
like, what is this
Yeah.
guy doing?
Yeah.
And then, so I was like, no, I'll try and like figure out the vibe that everyone's in.
Mhm.
And then I'll go from there.
Yes.
And then, so it's very weird for me. Are your parents still alive?
My mom is, yeah.
Mom is still, how old is she?
91
Wow.
or 90. 90, yeah.
What was it like for you when your dad passed away? Because you share very openly in your special
Yeah.
about how, like, and I think you and I've connected a lot on this. Growing up in a home with a man who's very violent with his alcohol, like it's a terrifying existence.
Yeah.
And I think you and I don't know, we bond around this. I
Yeah.
think a lot of our comedy is shaped by this or this feeling. But I've always wondered, what did it feel like when your dad passed away?
The interesting thing was like we'd kind of made peace prior to him dying.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did the thing with the will, which is in 3 mics. But
For those who don't know, what it...
Netflix is a streaming platform, and I have a special on there
This
called
guy's the
3
worst.
Mics. It's one of my 3 specials. There's one called 3 Mics, one called Blocks, and one called Crazy Good, which is the newest one. It's pretty popular. My dad, we never really got along, and then he died and left money in his will to everyone but me.
Ooh.
So it was just painful. That part was painful. But I just don't, it's weirdly like doing 3 mics got it out of me, got the pain out of me. It used to weigh down on me. It used to be like a cause of anger.
Yeah.
And now it just, either from doing 3 mics or something, I just can kind of see the positive in that. And I actually wrote him a note before he died of like, I appreciate the socioeconomic position he put me in, meaning like I got to go to NYU. I'm paid for some of it, but like NYU is not cheap.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anything was possible,
Right.
which I think is a thing that is a kind of as a parent has got to be one of the main goals. He one time said like, when I was growing up, we were told all you had to provide your kid was food and shelter. And I remember going like, the government can do that. But so I guess he's born in 1930.
Damn.
Like, that's a different world. It's just a different, and I've gotten more, I don't even know if I've gotten empathetic, but I've certainly gotten less angry as time goes on.
I'm curious. Were you angry because you thought he was trying to spite you? Because like my instant mind goes to as a parent, he didn't leave you the money because you were the most successful and he's the kid that thought you were going to be okay. That's like my parent giving him this
Right.
grace and empathy.
Yes.
But was your anger because you're like, oh, you're trying to spite me?
Yeah, it felt like a flick, like
Okay.
a last little flick. Like, oh, well, you're Mr. Tough Guy
Okay.
or something.
Mhm.
But yeah, it could go either. It's one of those things of like, could be.
And have you asked your mom? Have you asked your siblings? Like,
Basically, yeah, they tried to talk him out of it.
Oh, so they knew.
Yeah.
So you didn't know leading up to
I
it?
didn't know.
Wow.
They knew. And they tried to talk him out of it. And he was like, nah. And and then I've heard from another brother that he was sort of slagging him about like, you're just here for the money.
Oh, wow.
Like it was sort of a real, he went down swinging, so to speak. So I don't really know what to make of it other than I'm glad I don't carry it because it's not helpful.
We're going to continue this conversation right after this short break.
So I'm curious because you guys are both comedians. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Is comedy really that cathartic? Because like hearing Neal, you say like, I released this thing, I surrendered it, and I can put it behind me. Is the
Some
work
of it
that is the work that
you just say it so much that it's in a weird way you'll relate.
Yeah.
It's like material you don't believe anymore.
Yeah.
It's like Chappelle has an observation that jokes are like tires that the tread wears out. And if I'm doing a show about my dad, you just after a while, it's like, what? So there's partially that, which is just sort of like getting tired of saying something. And I would say it's more from the spiritual stuff of like releasing it.
Okay.
But there was, before the spiritual stuff, there was this idea of like, I don't know. I think I just sort of like talked it out. Have you talk less personally than I do? But your earlier shows were a little more personal.
Yeah, I used to speak more personally, and then I realized
won't make that mistake again.
No, I think there's sort of a weird idea I adopted in and around taking over the Daily Show, and it was like, don't make it about you.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? It was like, okay, it's about the show, it's about the work, it's about the, and now on the other side of it, now I'm going back into more personal material. Now I'm going back into, but it's funny, I never thought it was cathartic.
So even in your early work, when you're sharing about your experience being mixed race, and it wasn't. You were just,
I'll be honest. I don't think it's cathartic for most comedians. If I'm honest, I think what happens a lot of the time is comedians have found like it's almost like it's like a shield that you can put in front of you to seem like you are dealing with the thing, but you are not dealing with the thing, funny. and you're speaking about it to people. So people are like, oh wow, you're speaking about it, so you must be over it, or you must be. Yeah. But I don't think it's cathartic. The reason I don't think it's cathartic is because comedians get to do the thing with the audience, and that is we escape with the laugh.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think real catharsis requires you to stay in something until it is released. Mm-hmm. As opposed to finding a way to escape, and so
is it avoidance then?
It's not avoidance.
It too psychological, like
it's not avoidance. I think, and I was thinking about this before this conversation. I was going to ask you, this generation of comedians is the first. I remember the shift. I don't know if you remember. There was a point in comedy where we saw almost every few months a comedian committing suicide somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You would just hear it. You'd walk into a comedy club.
The good old days.
Everyone would be around. Everyone would be around a table in the club, and there'd just be like a sad feeling, and you'd be like, "Hey, what's going on?" And be like, "Oh, did you hear about Bobby?
Yeah.
Did you hear about blah blah blah?" And did you hear? And you'd be like, "What happened?" They're like, "Oh yeah, no, they found him in a hotel room in Pennsylvania. They found him in a hotel room in Ohio or something. They found him in a hotel room."
Yeah.
And this was constant. It was almost expected in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know what happened, but suddenly something shifted. All of a sudden, comedians wouldn't be ordering the chicken wings backstage. They were ordering the celery and the kale and the baby carrots and the hummus. And then they wouldn't be ordering a drink like a cocktail or whiskey. They'd be ordering water. Then like and then comedians would be like, oh yeah, I gotta leave now. I'm working out in the morning.
We're in a way it's a contradiction in that people are getting. I think culture in general is getting more like self-carry.
Yeah, wellness.
Yeah, wellness. There you
go.
Yeah. Now the thing I wanted to talk to you about was I had something I want to talk to you about, which is what I call wisdom theater or wellness theater, performative wellness, performative wisdom. Meaning we talked about a mutual friend of ours who wanted to be the most healed guy.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, this is killing me.
Where people go on podcasts, they host podcasts, they no offense.
No offense to all of us,
no offense
including
to
yourself.
everyone,
Everyone's saying
present
everyone.
company included.
Yes.
Where it becomes about performing wisdom, performing self-care,
Performing
and
altruism, performing
altruism, performing, and and it's like, this isn't it either. Do you think it's even helpful to have all of this, like, I meditated this morning, and just all that stuff? Because I believe it's all in service of being better at capitalism.
I always say, the easiest way to see it, well, I'll tell my friends, is when you look at a post, let's say online, as soon as somebody says, here's how I did it, or, this is how I became more productive, or I'm like, no, that's not the point.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, meditating is not about becoming more productive.
Yeah. Buddha was all about rising and grinding. If you know the story at all, it's all about...
I don't know. I just think we're in the age of it right now, and I accept it, And I'll be honest, I don't mind the fact that the trend right now is to be healthy,
right?
Because that's a fine trend.
No, if you have to pick trends,
I love wellness.
It's the best. Workaholism
I'm
being the
crunchy
best
and insane.
of
You don't even want to.
Best of. I'm vegan, so I don't want to. Don't even talk to me.
There was a time in comedy where one thing comedians all shared was comedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter like who you were, where you were from, what you did, black, white, old, young, woman, man. It really didn't matter. It didn't matter. We had this thing where we would go into a comedy club and it was like comedy time.
Yep.
And we all just had comedy. And then I noticed over the past few years, and it's funny, I'm less worried about it for comedy and I'm more worried about what it means for society, is I've noticed a creep of polarization even in comedy. Like, comedy used to be everyone does everything and they're comedians, and someone will get on stage and say the craziest joke that is whatever, it can be anything, misogynistic, racist, you name it, but it's within the confines of comedy. Like, they're using the tools to make a joke about it, right? And then now comedy's slowly becoming like, oh, well, those people, that's their politics. We don't do comedy with them. And these people, we don't do comedy with them. Like, do you think politics is going to end comedy as we know it?
It is. Well, it's the world. It's like, I've known Joe Rogan 30 plus years, and I didn't know his politics until 9 years ago. And it's not because he didn't have any. It's just because you didn't know. You literally didn't know what somebody's politics were.
Yeah.
Until I'm going to say 2008, the internet, social media. And then once social media started, then it became like Twitter and dunking on people, and you see so-and-so's tweet, and that's I'm triggered, and that's inappropriate, and they're going to pay. And now I have to like mute them, or I have to not like. I've actually thought, can I like this tweet? Because there's going to be there's
people who will see that you liked it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we're all part of so many different groups that we've always been, but it just kind of you didn't wear them all the time.
Yeah.
Now it's almost like there was a Daily Show joke, I think, where they had the Formula One or the NASCAR sponsorships.
Right. But it was all the badges.
The badges of like people that had donated. We're all these things now, and we used to just not be.
I was thinking this back when Elon Musk had the rocket come back down to Earth. Yeah. I remember watching that. First, I
texted him. I was so excited. Go ahead. Known him 29 years. Go on.
You're clearly a verified user. I watched the rocket come down. First, I thought it was a fake video because it's so amazing that it looks fake.
Unreal.
Did you watch the longer one? Like
that's what I'm saying.
Second one,
that's the one I'm talking about.
Wait, this is gonna land?
So I thought it was going. I thought someone had reversed the video because I was like, this makes no sense.
Yeah.
I was like, physics. What is happening here? And I'm watching all of this, and then I texted all my friends, especially like friends who love tech and everything. I was like, this is the most amazing thing. Have you seen this? And I was like, have you? And people were like, screw that guy.
I know.
And I was like,
whereas you were going like maybe the fascism's worth it.
That's not what I was saying. That's not what I was saying. And I've now learned on the podcast I have to now be very clear.
Yes.
That's not what I was.
This does not represent me.
And even in my group of friends, I didn't understand, and I still don't understand, why people feel the need to tell me how they feel about a thing that I know they feel about, but I'm like, I'm your friend. If I send you a video of an Elon Musk rocket being caught from space, and I go, this is amazing, don't say to me, Elon Musk sucks.
Yeah.
I know how you feel.
Yeah. They're afraid in that thing of like, if I like this tweet, am I going to get in trouble?
Yeah, but this is in our own messages.
I know, but
we're friends.
Right, but it's infected that as well.
Oh man, that's terrifying to me.
It really has. I think
that is terrifying to me.
Once people start releasing texts in court cases, in doxing case, any of these, that's like this is bad.
No,
this is bad.
No, I'm going to go on the record and say, I will never judge anybody for texts that get released unless those texts indict them about something they've done in public, because of it's like a comedy club. It goes back to the same rule. If we're in a comedy club, we know that the people in here are trying to say things that elicit a laugh from the audience. So a comedian will make a joke about anything. They'll make a joke about murder. They'll make a joke about genocides. They'll make a joke about rape. They'll make a joke.
I heard a comedian make a joke referring to a bunch of suicides as the good old days.
That was on this podcast.
I don't know where I heard it.
That was on one of the episodes.
What?
Go back through the episodes and you'll find it. But that's what I mean. It's like there's the context, and when we maintain that context, people know. Oh yeah, you can send something to your friend or your family member that is egregious. It can be the most horrible thing towards them or towards somebody else. But because of the context, they know that you're joking. They know that. Do you get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I actually worry about that world. I don't want to live in a world where we now have to sort of like
thought police.
Yeah, we have to now go like, I've never had that thought. I do not think anything that is bad could be funny. I do not think.
Never say in private what you won't stand behind in public.
No, but it's a joke. I wouldn't say many things.
I say crazy stuff in private.
You do actually.
I'm saying, like,
but it's freedom.
Then there's no difference between private and public.
Yeah, obviously there are private acts. There's things that you do in private that you will never do in public. But just be who you are. I think it's easier.
Have you ever been on a group chat or even a one-to-one chat where someone's texted something and you've been like, boy, that's hot?
Yeah, I mean, that's what texts are for.
I agree.
Every group chat with me.
But have you ever gone, do I give it a ha-ha? Do I give it a thumbs up? What do I give this? And if it ever goes public? I've truly had that thought.
So I think that society, it's not to delve too deep into the world of like the shadow self and all of these things, but we need to accept that as human beings, the paradox of the brain is that it is thinking about what it should not think about, even when we're telling it to think about something.
It's mostly an intrusive thought.
Exactly. Yeah. Everything.
90% intrusive.
When I'm on the freeway, most of the time I'm thinking, crash that,
run over
crash
here,
that, run over them, run over them, crash that, crash.
Yep.
I'm not doing it though, but my brain is going, what would happen? What would happen? What would happen? What you know what I mean? So I actually personally, as Trevor, I judge people based on their actions, not on their thoughts.
Correct.
Because I go, that is, in my opinion, what makes you a good person is that you act in a way that is good for other people or for yourself, and you don't follow all the thoughts that are. In fact, if you follow all the thoughts, I think they would put you in an asylum. They would say that you listen to the voices in your head.
You just be in jail.
Exactly.
I personally just feel suspicious of people who are like nice about people all the time. Just like that person makes me feel.
That is true.
I'm
with you.
But that's the world we're in right now. Like,
if
you say anything about anyone, public or private, it has to be a nice or kind thing, because I just think it's not the human experience. Sometimes, like, because I'm like, oh, I don't like them, and people are like, why? I'm just like, it's just a feeling. They've done nothing. I just don't, like, that's a real thing to have like this visceral reaction to someone. But I think the way our politics are and the way the world is going, is just that people think that they have to play nice all the time.
It's just
and
getting
they're just being
more and
disingenuous.
more. It's just the it's creeping.
Do you think it's hurt comedy as a whole?
No.
Okay.
I don't. There's no comedy. First of all, it's never been more popular. It's never been more lucrative. So this idea that comedy's being hurt or cancel culture, any of that stuff, it's like everyone I know that I want to do a joke like, yeah, you got to be careful as a comedian because, you could say something and then somebody will clip it. And then next thing you know, you'll be doing arenas. It's everyone I know that gets canceled. You get canceled up. It's the Crucible. It's like, how are you going to respond to this?
Yes.
And then that's
Yeah.
how people judge you. And if you cower and go, and genuflect, or if you ignore it, or if you double down, or there's like ways to do it, but it makes the audience trust you more, I think.
Yes. I remember I bumped into Shane Gillis, and I remember chatting to him, and I was like, and I genuinely mean this. I was like, I'm so proud of Shane Gillis as a human being and as a comedian, because he got fired off of SNL. People discarded him. They're like, he's out. Then he amassed a huge amount of fans who were like, bring
He's
more.
a prime case.
They were like, bring more racism, bring more. They were like, do the thing that. And I'll never forget his first shows that he booked. I think it was at the Stand, actually, in New York. Shane comes out and he basically addresses the fact that people have come there to see racist jokes, and he's like, "That's not what I do."
Noodle like a Chinese person.
and he didn't, and then he subverted the whole thing, and he joked about it, and then and even now, like, I go, genuinely, Shane Gillis is one of the people where, and I don't think anyone, quote unquote, let's say, has an excuse, but he would have had an excuse to be an asshole. Shane was like, no, he's like, hey man, I made some jokes, you didn't like them, I'm still gonna make jokes, and genuinely now, I think he's one of the best comedians working in the world. And when you watch his comedy, I don't care what you are, by the way, conservative, liberal, whatever you think you are, Shane Gillis is funny, but I also think it's amazing to see somebody who was able to withstand the horde that supports the worst instincts.
Yeah.
You know? Because one person can go, Neal, how could you say that? You get canceled. And then what happens is there's a crowd that comes in to like claim you. And they're like, yes, Neal. Yes.
Yeah.
Join us. All the things. Yes. And you know how we feel about those people. And you're like, man, I just made a joke that some people didn't like. And they're like, no, but Neal, do only those jokes.
Yeah.
And Shane, I don't know like how he did it as a human, because that must have been really hard.
I think he shrugged it off. He just seemed to kind of go like, oh.
I don't know how though. This next segment, Core Memories, is brought to you by Starbucks. The holidays aren't just about grand gestures, but the little moments that bring warmth, connection, and joy to the season. I remember the first time I experienced a winter Christmas in America. It felt like I was stepping into a movie. Because you see, back home in South Africa, Christmas is all about summer, right? It's barbecues, cold drinks, and running around outside in the sun. That's how I grew up. But here I was, sitting by the window, watching snowflakes fall, something I'd only ever seen on TV before. Everything felt so still, like the world outside had been wrapped in a thick, cozy blanket. Inside it was warm, almost too warm to be honest. The heat was on and there was a smell of cinnamon in the air, which, by the way, Americans love. I couldn't help but laugh at myself. I was bundled in 3 layers of clothing, even though everyone else seemed perfectly comfortable in their one sweater. A very ugly sweater. We spent the evening indoors playing board games where people were fighting over sheep. I still don't understand what that game was about. But what struck me was the coziness of it all. Everyone gathered together, and the sound of laughter filled the room. It was such a contrast to the Christmases I had grown up with, where everything was loud and outdoors, and this was slower and it was more intimate. And honestly, I loved it just as much. There's something magical about being stuck inside because of the cold, surrounded by people you care about, while the rest of the world feels like it's standing still. That was the moment I realized Christmases aren't really about the weather or the food. It's all about who you spend it with. There's no denying, moments like these are so much more magical when they're paired with the comforting flavors of the holiday season. Create core memories this holiday season. Order your favorite holiday beverage on the Starbucks app today.
You get in trouble from time to time, and I don't say that joking, but I'm saying, how do you, what's your philosophy?
So it's funny, Christiana and I were talking about this. We were literally talking about this. So like after the Tanahasi episode on the podcast, right? I had, you name it, I had people phoning me, everybody from everywhere. You know, so you run the spectrum from friends, close friends, going like, Trevor, like, how could you have that man on? And that is extremist and it's anti-Semitic and this is trash. And why would you even sit there and listen to him? And all the way through to strangers just being like, this is why you should be dead. I wish apartheid had killed you and blah, 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 blah.
So you
blah,
got
blah.
my message. Go ahead.
And the two of you know me in those moments more than most people, right? And the first thing I do is listen, because I go like, all right, tell me everything. Just tell me everything, you know? And so like a friend of mine would just be like, oh, he's like, you know, I can't believe you. Why didn't you ask Tanasi this? And why didn't you ask him that? And I responded and I was like, hey, the same way if somebody's coming to talk about like their documentary about something that happened in Israel, I'm not going to push them on everything about what's happening in Gaza, because this is the part of the story that we're here to talk about. And it was interesting. Like when I have those conversations, I just listen to what the person is saying, what they're feeling, and then I try and understand where we're missing each other. You know, so the one note, for instance, I said to a friend, one of my friends, he was like, I hated the fact that you talked about Jewish people and then you talked about Israel and you talked about Jewish people, but then you conflated the two. And I was like, oh yeah, actually you're right.
Okay, yeah.
I was
well,
like,
that's what I'm curious about. How much? Because I find that how much does your listening affect your judgment?
Can I say something?
How much growth is there? Go ahead.
Because to me, I always see Trevor as very like unflappable. Maybe that's like the Swiss German, like the veneer of like, no, he seems unflappable. So I was like, because it was like the backlash was a bit weird. So I hit him up, but I think Trevor just heals quickly and better. I call him Wolverine. Like he like heals very quickly and better.
Because he takes a ton of steroids? Go ahead.
Maybe. I don't know. It's the shrooms, I think. But no, like I think he does feel it. That's what I'm.
No, I feel all of it.
He feels everything. He's such a Pisces.
I feel all
everything.
of it.
What do you do? Play
He's
FIFA?
very sensitive.
No, I am very sensitive, and I feel all of it.
I wouldn't have. No, I'm like, but you don't. Like,
no, so okay.
You don't see it.
So there's a few things that have. You asked me this question, and I realized there's a few things that have helped me understand this. And it's funny because I think, Neal, you'll have something similar but different because of your upbringing. So, first of all, I grew up in a house and in a country where there was a lot of violence, right? And so when I was a child watching this, I never once looked at it and went, yeah, this is right.
Yeah.
I even talk to my mom now and I go, why would you get so angry when you were hitting me? And she's like, because you wouldn't listen. I'm like, yeah, but why did you get angry though? I was like, you could have just like done it as like all right, kid, here comes your punishment. And then she would say, she's like, I was so frustrated. And I was like, I know I, cut something open. I know I dismantled the TV. I know I burnt down a room. I know whatever I did. But even me as a child, I would go, that was not ideal, but I'm not going to lose my cool over this. And then I'd get my beating and then I would cry and I'd feel it. I'd feel everything. But the thing that would stick with me is how it didn't make sense for people to lose their cool. And I talk to my friends about it and we have these big fights, but I go, every one of our parents, especially African parents, but I mean, I know, how Neal grew up, parents were beating kids and this was like a normal thing. And now we joke about it. You'd be like, oh, you pray there's no shoe around and you pray like Eddie Murphy had those jokes and we all laughed about it. But I think I grew up watching this going, it doesn't seem to be ideal and it doesn't seem to get where I'm going. So maybe what I did a little too much was I internalize it. So I keep it in me. But then what I do is and that's where ADHD helps. I'm having 6 conversations now at the same time.
Okay.
So you're speaking to me and I'm listening to what you're saying. And then I'm sort of going to like one tree, which is like, okay, how do I agree with you? How do I disagree with you? What's happening here? What's not happening here? Do I connect with you? Do I not connect with you? Can I see your humanity? And I always go, if I see you as a person, which I do with most human beings on this earth, genuinely, I go like, I'll still find something to connect with you on. And so on the other side of it, when you ask me like, how much does it change me? I genuinely listen. So a person almost only has to tell me once. And I will keep that because it means something. So when my friend said to me, my friend who's Jewish and spent time in Israel said, I didn't like that you said Jewish and Israel, but you conflated the two. And I was like, okay, I will never do that again. But then when it comes to like arguing about whether or not it's an apartheid state, I said, you are my friend and I love you, but we're not going to agree on this. And I don't think we need to agree on this to remain friends. In fact, as my friend, I hope that you'll still keep me in your life and I will work to keep you in my life, but I don't want to lose you because of this thing, because there's so many things that we're going to disagree on. This is just one of the biggest ones, and I don't know, whether it's just this moment in time or social media or I don't know what it is, But I feel like people have less and less ability now to maintain friendships or to maintain connections that also hold a space of disagreement or conflict.
It's the same thing. It's that thing about if I write haha to this text, you have this constituency in your head or imagined or whatever that I can't say disagree on this but love you the same, because then you'll lose your constituency.
Yeah, and you see, for me, that I don't think that moves us forward, because I've always believed that people don't change by hanging out with people who are like them.
I agree.
I think we change by rubbing on each other, just rubbing off on each other. And I think the common humanity, that's why I come back to stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
I think of the comedians I used to meet in comedy clubs, and I still, till this day, I mean, everything, racist, misogynistic, whatever you want to call it, but they were also human beings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not excusing any of the things they did. The same way I'm sure someone wouldn't excuse some of the things I did or said or as a person. You all have your faults. But the one thing that would connect us first and foremost is that we were comedians. You remember we'd even say as comedians, you'd be like, man, have you seen that guy's new bit? You'd be like, it is the most racist bit you've ever seen, but God, it's funny.
Yeah.
And holding that paradox, holding that cognitive dissonance, I think was key to us. And you would see, not all, but you would see a lot of the comedians evolve over time, because society would evolve and you would shift, and you'd find a lot of the comedians who were doing the jokes they were doing back in the day wouldn't do them anymore, and they would evolve slowly.
My objection to this primarily is like, it's fine when it's all like theoretical, we're working on jokes, that person's a bit racist, that person's a bit misogynistic. But we're living in a time where women currently can't get abortions in many states.
Completely with you.
So there's like real world implications of whether it's sexism, racism, transphobia. So I think it's difficult because these people in our lives that have unsavory views, it feels like they're winning. I feel like the world is shifting to the right. I feel like the world is a scarier place. And that's like just true. Like, you look at elections, you look at all of this stuff. And so it's like, it's harder for people to be like, well, I can see you as a whole human being when your vote is the reason that, like, I was terrified to do IVF in Texas. Because I was like, well, I'm a woman with a history of loss. And if I need to get a DNC, will I be able to get one? Will a doctor give me one? Right. So there's like real world implications for like these controversial right wing or even like super far left ideas. And some people are like, I actually don't want to be around that in my personal life. And I don't blame them. Do you know what I mean?
Of course. And that's, the two thoughts I had is, it's a bit like being friends with two people who don't get along. And you're like, I was just you have lunch with somebody.
Yeah. And then you go meet with their enemy.
And then you're like, am I a piece of garbage? Both of these people have been good to me.
Yeah.
And then the other thought I had was, do jokes lead to action? If you make a joke, does that mean you stand with that? Yeah. And that's where comedy comes in, because it's like, I don't know, I can make a joke about anything. I don't stand with it. It just, my brain did that construction, and I was like, this might be fun.
But if a comedian does their job properly and the joke is good enough, you won't get in trouble.
So I used to think that, but then I realized we've robbed the world of context. You know, and on one of our previous episodes here, when Yuval Noah was here, right, the author of *Sapiens* and *The Nexus*, he said something that really stuck with me, and it was, we are living in an age where we have more information than we've ever had in our lives. We have access to more information, but we don't have enough time to process it. And I think the problem with like comedy now, let's say, or jokes even, is there's no context anymore.
Yeah.
You know? Then even when Twitter began, the first people who followed comedians on Twitter, and people all agreed that this was a place where people are making jokes. They are not real things, right? And then the context spread, the algorithm moved things around. Now you're sitting at home, minding your own business. You're a super religious person, and then some video will come on your feed where someone's trashing religion, making jokes about it, and you're like, you get angry, but there's no context. You didn't want to see that. Yeah. You didn't ask to see. And I think that's like one of my key issues with social media, is the fact that people are not asking to see. They're not opting in any way. You know, I feel like it should be like an opt-in as opposed to an opt-out.
Mm-hmm.
But people are seeing videos that they don't want to see, videos that are like actively making them angrier, sadder, more afraid, etc. And I think that's actually hurting comedy and hurting the idea of comedy as opposed to it being or not being. Does that make sense?
But I also think like there's some things that people should be listen, I like shame. I'm not like
you do love shame.
I like shame.
Mm-hmm.
You love shame.
I'm into
Do
it.
you know what I mean? And I'm just like,
It's one of my kinks.
whether you're a comedian, whoever you are, I don't kink shame, Neil.
Great.
I'm proud of you.
Fantastic.
So the one place he doesn't shame is kink. Okay. No
No,
kink.
okay.
Oh, no.
Shame, but
But
no
I'm
kink.
just
I
like,
can
there's
follow
some
it.
things that if
Either
you...
way, I have an erection. Go ahead.
Okay, Neil. No, I'm just like, there's some things, if you say them, there could be consequences. Like, I know every time I say something, I'm trying to teach my kids, something if I've had to learn the hard way is like, you say stuff, sometimes people get offended and there's going to be a backlash.
So you're correct in that civil rights are a little wobbly in certain respects, right? But there's also people, there's a huge incentive to grievance. There's an incentive, the incentive to being in a conversation used to be somebody make a joke, you'd laugh. The incentive was to like be agreeable and be open-minded.
To join, in
Yeah.
some way.
And now the incentive is to take offense and to be like, this is a chance for me to get all my picket signs out and represent for my invisible constituents.
I agree, but I think we're also in a time for a lot of people where they feel there's a lot to be aggrieved about.
I agree.
And so we just have to acknowledge that like people are constantly offended because the world is very offensive.
The issue I have with it is the getting offended. It is you on the other side of getting offended. And I say this from let's take comedy out of it for a moment. I think of language.
Mm-hmm.
So I speak many languages, as you know, Neal Brennan. And one of the things I love about speaking multiple languages is the fact that you learn how offensive the same thing is in another culture, in another language.
Sure.
You didn't change anything. You moved your hand in a different way. You did a thumbs up in one country and they're like, what did you say about my father? And you're like, wait, what? You put your hand under your chin in one country and they're like, what are you saying about my family?
But Trevor, don't you adjust?
No,
You
listen.
adjust in different contexts, right?
But that's because I've moved to places, right? We are no longer moving. So we now live in a world.
So there's 9 different languages.
That's what I mean. So we're no longer moving. Before it made sense, I go to Dubai. When I'm in Dubai, I acknowledge I'm in the United Arab Emirates. I will respect the cultures and the laws accordingly. When I go to South Africa, I know my people. I will respect my people and I will work accordingly. I do this everywhere in the world. But now I'm not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. You're at home tweeting your friend, TikToking your people. You're not going anywhere. And then it takes you where the people don't agree with you, but you didn't go there. That's what I'm trying to say. And so the problem with offense is that everything is offensive to everyone if there is no context. So you can literally say something, you could say to your own grandparent, you'd be like, how old are you, Granny? And they'll be like, 93. They're like, whoop, it's almost time. And your grandparent laughs, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
You take that video, you put it on your own social media page for you and your few fans and your people. You might have 20 followers. For some reason, it sparks something. All of a sudden, there's a deluge of people coming to you saying, how dare you? Do you know what ageism does to our culture?
Elder abuse.
You're discarding. I don't care that they laugh. They probably laugh because they're scared of you. And you're like, no, this is my grandparent. They taught me this humor. I'm laughing with them. For instance, I've seen comedians, and you've seen this. I've seen comedians who have disabilities, deaf, blind, they have MS, cerebral palsy, whatever it is. They make a joke online. People don't know that they have that disability. And they just come off them. How could you? How dare you, piece of trash? You. And then their fans come in and go like, excuse me, they have the disability. And then people are like, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's so funny. And I'm like, what just changed?
Yeah.
Nothing has changed. Your context and the way you saw the thing changed. And so I do agree with you. Yes, words have consequences. Yes. But I think we should never take for granted our participation in some of these ideas where we are choosing to get angry on some of it. We are choosing to take it like and make it like, Personally, I do this in my life with my friends, with my people. I encourage people to just, it's almost like filtering. Focus on the things that you should actually be angry about, because there's a lot of things that actually it's like, oh, you just misinterpreted it. You really just misinterpreted it. It's a different perspective, different language, different culture, different vibe, different story, and it actually doesn't spoil your life. We're going to continue this conversation right after this short break. I don't know what the solution to this is, but I still go back to my belief that the solution doesn't lie in people siloing themselves. I believe as Trevor, this person has no incentive and will never even shift a little bit if I'm not in their life. And I will never see their perspective if I'm not in their life.
Trevor, you have that kumbaya and Mandela stuff.
But it's not kumbaya,
You
man.
do.
Get out of here with all that.
No, but it's something.
You
listen.
jive turkey.
No. I'm saying, okay, Trevor hired me because I was on Twitter talking shit about The Daily Show.
Great.
That's how we met. That's the type of person. No.
That's not why. You see, the why was wrong.
Wait, no, but you came across my tweets. You were like,
Yes.
oh, this person really disagrees with what I'm doing at The Daily Show. He found me interesting, my mind.
Yeah,
but
that's-
like,
but that's the
I'm
why.
complimenting you. He's the type of guy that we like see those tweets. You know what? I'm gonna hire that bitch. That is Trevor. Like he just is.
That's
like,
a direct quote.
It's a direct quote.
Yeah.
But it's like even the way he has his
And
writer's
look,
room.
and look at
everything.
where we are now.
No,
Yeah.
it's something
You were part of helping me win an Emmy. You were part of helping make the show the
and I
best thing it's
respect-
ever been.
I'm like, I don't know how you hold that. It's something I really admire as someone who can be very tribal. Actually, politically,
But
my friends are all over the map.
Have you changed in any way? That's what I'm
She
curious
definitely
about.
has.
No, I have-
I've changed my opinion
have
about
changed.
lots of stuff.
No,
And it's like,
influenced-
do I completely disregard that version
So
of
can I just
No.
say something about both of you real quick? As your friend, both
Yeah.
of you, I've seen both of you change because of me, and both of you have changed me because of you,
Yeah,
because
but
you're in my life.
but
So Christiana, I've watched you become funnier and looser as a person in the time that I've known you. Like I've literally watched you. I like what you said, but like with the Twitter thing, yes, you were trash talking me and trash talking the Daily Show and everything. But more importantly, I saw somebody who was super smart, really, like the
Yeah.
way you saw the world and the way you like understood ideas and what you brought in and your journalistic brain. I was like, damn, this is amazing. I wasn't hiring people on Twitter who were just like, Trevor Noah, you suck. Go
Yeah.
back to your country. I wasn't
Yeah.
like, yeah, this person needs to come to the Daily Show.
Yeah.
It's not about that. I'm able to look.
They already work there. Go ahead.
I'm able to look at the thing that lies beneath how you respond to me.
No, I admire it.
And so like,
admire
so when
it.
I look at the two of you, you've become funnier, like more chill, more everything. Right. Neal, let me tell you something. When I met Neal Brennan, so I'll take you on a little journey. When I met Neal Brennan for the very first time, I was on Twitter, and this was the good old days of Twitter where people were just making jokes. There was
Sure.
nothing serious on it.
Yeah.
It was just
Before
jokes.
Christina came and made it all tribal. Go ahead.
And there was just jokes. And I remember Neal had really funny jokes on Twitter. And I was like, this guy's funny. And I followed him. And then it said co-creator of Chappelle Show. And I was like, wait, what? And I went in, and I hadn't even like watched the Chappelle Show in that way. I never had cable. I couldn't afford it. All these things, sob
Grew up
story,
in a,
whatever.
copper roof.
Yeah, you know how it is. You know how it is.
Born a
Whatever.
crime.
Yeah.
Born a
Tough
crime.
life.
Yeah,
Let's keep it
yeah,
moving. But I then went and I watched the show, and then I saw the first sketch, the black white supremacist, and then you're in the back there, and like your head explodes, and but then I like started research. I was like, damn, this guy's funny, and he's just been in everything that I love. So I follow him on Twitter, and now I just love his jokes. And then I come to America for the first time doing like random shows, and I meet him at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. And I'm walking through the corridors there, very dark, very like sad.
Satanic energy.
It really is. And I walked in, and I saw his face, and I was like, wait a minute. I was like, Neal Brennan. And I was like, I know you. He's like, doesn't everyone?
What are you, from another country?
Yeah, it was very like, I was like,
Flicked a
wow.
cigarette.
And I was like, what? And I was like, yeah, hey, nice to meet you. I was like, I love you. I follow you on Twitter, blah, 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 blah. And Neal was like, very dismissive. Neal was like, okay, whatever, man. And like, just very like, leaning against the wall. Like it's almost like a scene from Grease, but without the leather jacket. Just like leaning on the wall and just like, whatever, kid, keep it moving. And I walked in, I went to do my sets or something. And then when I was walking out, Neal goes like, hey, wait a minute. Where you
Get
from?
back here.
He's like, where you from? And I was like, I'm from South Africa. And he's like, are you the guy? He's like, you followed me. I was like, yeah, I follow you. He's like, you're the reason I've got people. What did you say? You said, you're the reason I've got people with exclamation marks in their names following me. That's what Neal said. Neal was like, one day.
Apostrophes.
Yeah, you said like, one day I was on my Twitter
Clicks.
and it was just like Brad and Jenny following me.
Yeah.
And then the next day it was like, and I was like, yeah,
terrifying.
yeah. And I was like, that's my friend Olisa probably. I told him about your tweets. And that's how we meet.
Yeah.
Neal was like, and I hope you don't mind me saying, but like Neal was, I mean, you were grumpy. You were just like, the world is like, everything is bad,
dark, yes.
Energetically dark, always just like everything is shit. And God, what do you talk? No religion, and just like, and why are you smiling? He used to hate that I smiled. He's like,
are you serious?
Neal would even say to me sometimes, like, what are you so happy about?
Neal.
I don't think I said.
He said that.
I may have energetically said it.
He said no. He said it. He said, what are you so happy about? In fact, here's a fun story. Neal, and I've told the story before somewhere, I'm sure, but maybe with you. But like Neal, I remember you and I were sitting in a random, it wasn't even a diner. I don't know what it was.
It was a diner. Yeah.
It was a diner
in Denver.
Neal was doing the improv, I think.
I was doing the comedy work.
Okay, the comedy works. So we're having a late dinner after this, like, midnight type thing. We've both done our shows. And then classic Neal with his cynicism, Neal's like, how was your weekend? Did you make enough money to barely pay for your flights and your food?
You idiot, you African fool.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, because we made no money.
Yeah.
Basically, as a comedian, you were lucky if you came home with a little money from the road.
Yeah.
You were just breaking even.
That's
barely,
barely.
This is 12 years ago. This isn't like forever ago.
Yeah, this is 12 years ago. And at some point, Neal turns to me and he goes, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, I've seen your life in South Africa. He's like, why are you doing this? He's like, go home. People love you
told him
there.
to go back to
told him
Africa.
Yeah, he told me to go back to where I came
Yes.
from. And he's like, people love you there, and you're doing arenas. He's like, here you're in a comedy club where people came in for free and they don't know you, they don't even like you. And he's like, why? He's like, America's not ready for what did you say? America's not ready
Americans
for someone.
don't like foreign
Yes.
comedians.
Yeah, you were like, Americans don't like foreign comedians. And then we went through a list and he wasn't wrong. He's like,
Ricky Gervais is the only one who made an impact.
And they
Yeah.
made a show,
Yeah.
but they
Yeah.
made Americans
Yeah.
the show.
Yes.
And then Neal said this to me, and we had this discussion back and forth for a while. And I was like, oh, and I took it in a good way. I was
Yeah.
like, you know what, Neal? It's like, thank you. What, like, wonderful. You're such a good friend. He's like, I don't even know if I'm your friend. We're just in the same city. But I've always seen this, I've always said that. I was always like, what a sweet, loving guy. I was like, this is a sweet, loving human being who has been hurt by something and someone in the world.
Yeah.
And now he wears like a little shell
So
on
you
the
saw
outside.
him. You saw
Yeah,
him.
the same way I
Yeah.
see you.
Yeah.
The same way I see everyone, genuinely.
We see past all this,
Okay.
Christiana,
Okay.
to the real you.
Okay.
Go
I
ahead.
don't like to be seen, by the way, so
Of
this feels
course
very
not.
uncomfortable.
So I was like, this guy's a nice, because I think I meet people sometimes who are very nice, and I go, this person is an asshole, and I do not want to know them as a human
Yeah.
being.
Yeah.
They will burn your life down if they
Yeah,
get the chance.
for sure.
Yeah.
And then I meet people who are prickly, and I'm like, you're a good
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
You hide
I'd
it.
also like to say that once John Oliver made it, I called him
This was really funny.
and said, okay, you can come back.
No joke.
I stand corrected.
Yes.
He
that's
literally phoned me,
Yes.
and I was
It
in South
like,
Africa.
Yes. I go, all right, you can come back.
That's interesting.
Because it was kind of pointless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my point is,
When did he get sweeter?
But this is what I'm saying.
I got sweeter over time, especially in the last 5 years.
What
But, like,
happened? What made you?
I remember
like,
telling you about therapy, and you were like, meh, meh.
You didn't tell me about therapy.
No, I remember talking to you about therapy,
Oh,
and
yeah,
you were
yeah,
like,
yeah.
meh,
did you
meh.
go to therapy?
I've been going to therapy since I was 23.
Yeah, but now you went into
But
like,
once Trevor told me about it.
no, you know what I mean. You opened your heart, Neal.
I opened my heart from ayahuasca and DMT and MDMA. I'm sorry. I don't know how
Who
else
did
to
you
say.
tell? Who did you tell about religion? Who did you call when you said like, I now believe there might be a God?
You were one of the first people I believe I called.
Really?
Yep. So because I knew he'd like it.
But
It
you
was-
know
I
what,
was
Trevor? Back to you,
incentivized.
because Trevor,
Yeah,
you don't
I
but
like
wanted
you
to,
see, he
points.
cared.
Trevor doesn't like to speak about
He
himself.
even cared that I would like
I
it.
remember what people are into. I was like,
Yes,
who are
which
my
is
God
which is a
people?
nice. That's what I
Yeah.
mean. That's what. And I genuinely.
Yeah, I never
mean.
was a jerk. I seemed jerky,
That's my
but
point.
was kind.
That's my
Yeah.
point.
But Trevor, the thing about you, because you don't like talking about yourself, but I want to make it about you, that I find remarkable, and I'm still learning, is that you're, and I think it shows in your fans, in your life, you're able to have like this big tent where loads of different people can come in, and you never feel uncomfortable. Like you could just live in difference and tension, and maybe that's because of your childhood.
Yeah, it's because of my childhood.
but in a way that I'm still not there yet.
Oh yeah, but you were
know.
lucky. You grew up like, first of all, you're Nigerian, so you've
Yeah.
always had like your people,
Yeah.
and then also like your family and your. I've grown up as a singular.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I was and still am the only person in my family who even looks like me. Obviously, you can find features in my parents. You'd be, oh, I see. But no, my mother's a different color to me. My father's a different color to me. We are different people. And in the family, I'm a different person. And do you get what I'm saying? So
does that make you feel like lonely, or you just...
No, it was the opposite, funny enough. It didn't make me feel lonely because I don't spend all the time looking at myself, which is great.
It's interesting that you say like maybe you said it like that you, because of you are like kind of tribeless in terms of nobody looks like you.
Yeah,
nobody,
no.
So the whole, everyone's your tribe. You could take it as a prescription to be lonely.
Yeah.
Or you take it as like, oh, all right, well, I guess I'm everybody.
Yeah, no, I was always just like, you know, because it was the only way I was. And I think most importantly, my tight nucleus treated me as the in. So it's not like my cousins treated me strange. Not my grandmother, my mother, nobody in my circle. I was Trevor, fully just Trevor. And then because I understand other people's languages, I would find a way to get in quickly. And then my friends very quick. I mean, till this day, you all know my friends, but they just treat me like me.
Yeah.
So I don't even look down and be like, whoa, my skin is different to theirs.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I don't do that. And so let me ask you this. Why do you think, I'd love to know, why do you think as Neal, you were always more comfortable and more honest in black spaces than most white people?
I just never been that racist.
I love that you say that.
No, because everybody's racist. It's just it's just a matter of degree.
Yeah.
So I've just never been that racist. I had access because one of my brothers worked at the Wrigley Field, and all of his coworkers were black. They were always so nice to me. Eddie, Michael Jordan, Spike Lee, Arsenio.
Right.
I mean, this is like a creepy story. I'm like 9, right? 9 years old. I used to have to, Eddie's on Saturday Night Live. I used to have to run. My parents would get home. I used to have to run upstairs to hide that I wasn't watching it, right? Because they'd get home. I'm 9. I'm supposed to be in bed. At a certain point, I say to my mom, hey, you need to let me watch Saturday Night Live. It's important. I remember being 9 and going, what are you talking about? It's important. Again, it's not even like I'm so saintly. It's just like, it's stupid. It's just like,
it's illogical.
It's like you and I immediately I was like, oh, I think I know what you're like.
Yeah.
I don't care about your anything. It's like, I know what you're like. You're a very opinionated person. Like, okay.
Yeah.
I'll see you at the next argument. There's no, so it's not, I don't know. I just never really bought that into it in terms of,
like a social construction. You weren't like,
I don't even, it's
you just
not
were like, this is the person.
Yeah. I don't know. It's also just access. What, like the most of sexism, racism, it's just all these separations that we deal with. It's like, if I was in your experience, what conclusions would I come to? If I was in yours, what conclusions would I come to? It's assuming that people are coming to conclusions for the same logic that I come to conclusions about, and not. If I were black, I'm mad as a white person. So imagine what I'd be like.
And if I was a white man, I'd be so fucking rich.
You can imagine.
I'd be like, I say to my husband all the time, man,
yeah,
if they made me look like one of your friends, I'd be killing it right now.
Yeah, so like, I'm
sensing a movie here, guys.
Yeah.
He wanted to be a black woman. She wanted to be a white man.
Someone dropped one of these lights on our
head.
At
a podcast.
Yeah, so I think it's just theory of mind. It's like, what would it, I don't know. It's just assuming that someone's going to think the same things you would think, but if you were in that situation.
So you see, I come back to what I was saying now about sharing space with people. I listened to your story and just listening to what you said, because of your brother, you went to a place where all of his co-workers were black at Wrigley Field. You're now associating and seeing black people in their fullness, in their completeness. It is a lot harder to be racist to black people when you know black persons, it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
Because you're like, no, I know Dave, and I know Steve, and I know Daquan, and I know people. I know some are like this. I know some are not like this.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You then go, you're also in comedy. Then you're in Chappelle show. Again, now you're experiencing black people from all different walks of life. Everyone from Most Def and Talib Kweli.
I also think it's good personal experiences, meaning like Dave was, I don't know, we just got along. We were like close. We were like and this is exactly close at the same age, 18, 19. He was nice. He gave me an opportunity to write Hat Big with him. A lot of this is like, I feel it is like recompense for the opportunities that I've been given by Dave specifically. And then I give like black people all credit for that. A bunch of, meaning like, okay, I'll try to hire as many black people as I can because white person hired me.
Yeah.
I kind of have to, I morally, I have to. If I believe in any sort of moral framework, I have to try to not be that racist.
When you became more spiritual, I'd love to know, like you and I, many years ago, on the Daily Show, we talked about depression and how it affects people differently. And this is before I knew I had ADHD. And then I was like, oh, mine's not like depression. It's just a byproduct of ADHD at times. I want to know from you, what do you think some of the biggest blocks were to you figuring it out? In one special, you're joking about wearing a device on your arm that electrocutes you to remind you to smile and seem more affable.
Yeah.
This is a real thing.
Yes. And then it zaps me and I smile.
Yeah.
That's the cover art on Netflix. Is me fake smiling
because you've been
from
zapped.
being zapped.
Yeah. But then now you smile more as a person. You just generally.
Yeah.
What do you think was and it's not let's start with the thing that you did, but tell me what you discovered that shifted you out from under the cloud.
It's very dangerous. Ayahuasca, 5-MeO DMT, and then MDMA. I wouldn't recommend it because it's like the 5-MeO DMT, I like kind of lost my mind for a couple days. But those in sequentially, that's how I did them. And they worked for me.
Did you do it under guidance or just like by yourself? Okay.
I mean, not, there's like a person there, but like, they're not, there's like, there are tribes on the Amazon who have a lot of experience in hundreds and thousands of years of sort of how to deal with certain things. And then there's people that I dealt with that they mean well.
Neal, I'm curious, right? Because anytime I see you, you're working. I've never seen you like because you don't want to hang out with black women, obviously. So like, I've never seen you socially. So like, no, I'm curious, what does your depression look like? Because like, there's always this image of like in bed, I can't work. I don't shower.
Yeah, I was never, always tried to work my way out of it.
Okay. So that's why you're always working.
I tried to achieve my way out of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Like if I could get an achievement, which I think we've talked about before, it's like you get an achievement, you get a kind of a adrenaline spike that you take for good feeling, or you get an ego boost, which you take for good feeling. And then you kind of just like, and then it wears off. You're like, I got to do something else.
Okay.
And that's what they call a career.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so I did all that stuff. It's more a matter of changing my relationship to the facts of my life, meaning I'm incredibly lucky. I used to think I was unlucky.
Yeah, you
That's
did.
Crazy.
I really thought I was unlucky. I really thought I was like reason for grievance. And then I realized like, no, now I have a new idea, which is like, life isn't fair. No one's life should be as good as mine. Like I was dead wrong about what I thought was happening. Even the things that I thought were negative were positive. And it is like
everything was your friend.
It's all been good, and it's all been to my favor, even if it's I sent you that thing the other day about it's a Buddhist story about like, you never know. You never know what something means. Chappelle show ends. I'm like, I never would be a comedian if it didn't end.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
all these things that I think were negative were positive, just in a different time frame. So that's the biggest takeaway, is that like changing my relationship to the facts of my life. And I do a thing where I literally write the facts of my life down several times a day.
Oh,
So
wow.
you like journal
Okay.
it.
Yeah, but I call it a checklist to make it masculine. Because journal, but I call it like a checklist of like the facts of my life.
Okay.
Like you are this, you are this, you are this, you are this. You've got to do this. You got to do like this is incredible.
Yeah.
Just enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's a good advice for anything. It's like I can stay mad all the time in this situation, or I can take this as an opportunity for whatever, you know.
And so for me, it goes back to what we were saying about offense. It lives in the same world. I think in everything I'm hearing you saying, the facts didn't change. You know, your house, your car, your life, your job, your friends, your opportunities, that didn't change. Your relation to them changed. Your relationship to them changed. And that's what I think about, funny enough, with genuinely how we see the world a lot of the time, with its, you know, things online that offend us, people that make us angry, stories. A lot of the time, it's just your relationship to it. It is acknowledging the fact is it has happened, or you're seeing it.
Yeah.
But now what is my relationship to it? And just shifting that lets you off the hook from feeling like you're wearing a weighted vest. That's what I hear you say.
It's
It's
so
like,
hard though.
Oh, it's incredibly hard.
I think that.
But even like being a mom, I'm sure is like really tries your patience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could occupy that space of like just being aggravated all the time, which I think a lot of parents did for a long time. Or you can just be like, I'm gonna feel this way, and I have to figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, I just like surrender.
Yeah, that's
like,
Then my girlfriend says that all the time.
Yeah,
She's
I'm like, I
it's the
can't.
most zen thing in the world.
you
It's
just
just like
surrender.
I have a 4-year-old. They're gonna be 4
Yeah.
until he's 5.
And then they're gonna be
Yeah,
5.
and then he's gonna be
which is
5
another
apparently.
thing.
Yeah. So yeah, which is his own, and just like the surrender and the acceptance of like, this is what it is. I can either look at it and have my fist balled up all the time, or I can just be like, okay, this is I'm here. I might as well enjoy it. Which is the corniest, tritest.
Which is scary. When
no,
you say
I know,
because
but
I like to
it's-
strive. I love striving.
but I
with
think
you.
life is a balance between the two.
Yeah.
I think if we live only in the moment, we neglect.
Yeah, people that live in the moment it should be noted, are incredibly boring.
Yeah,
To speak to.
I think you
But
should.
honestly.
I think it's about finding a balance.
That's hard.
And it's
Holding
almost
those two ideas in
it's almost
concert.
impossible, because it's like how you look at it, how you choose to relate to it, how you move through, and sometimes you're not choosing it actively. But that's how I that's how I understand as Neal
falls
Brennan
on
more
you.
now.
A bunch of stuff was falling on me, and then I just tried to make it fall on me in a different way.
Yeah,
And
I love that.
in that like, yeah, I'm incredibly lucky. I would argue most people hearing this are incredibly lucky in that, like, you probably have enough money. There's all the things, the infrastructure that is in place for you to have Spotify.
Or anywhere you get your podcast.
Fantastic.
Yo, Neal, this was every time I speak to you, it's a joy. But this was extra special. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Neal.
If someone has to watch one of your specials now, which one do you want them to watch?
Watch Crazy Good. Just 'cause
Crazy
it's the
Good?
most recent one, yeah.
All right.
It's got the most timely joke. And
Well,
then
for
3
me,
mics.
I think of it like Star Wars. Go watch the trilogy.
Yes.
If you watch 3 mics and you watch Blocks and then you watch Crazy
Yeah.
Good, you will know this Neal Brennan and you will see the full
Yeah,
evolution.
you will see an
So
evolution
different.
in my, yeah.
Because the last time I saw you was before Trevor quit the show. 3 years,
Yeah.
I haven't met this Neal, and it's good. Good vibe.
Well-
you know, you got that dad energy in a good way. I can tell he's
put
with a
that on.
4-year-old. No, I can tell he's with a
Yeah.
because you're
Thank
like being with a 4-year-old kind of does something to you, and you're like,
Yeah.
I just fight with him. I'm like,
Yeah.
who is
He
this
likes
Neal?
to fight. Yeah.
I like it.
I fight children.
We'll save that for another episode. Neal, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Neal.
Thanks for having me. Bye.